Hey everybody, it's Paul from Alexander Knife Sharpening and Laser Engraving. So in this video, I didn't do any time lapses. It's a complete job from start to finish. The actual sharpening time is well under an hour, probably about 45 minutes, but I wanted to show you how I make over $100 an hour sharpening. I think you'll get a lot out of it. I will time code it for those of you who want to jump around a little bit, but I think you could get a lot out of watching an entire job from start to finish. All right, let's answer a question I often get. How do I pick what I'm going to do particular knives on in my shop with all the different options that I have? And this is a perfect example of something like this. It is just a box full of all different things. We have 3 Japanese knives. We have a Western Califon knife. We have a Crofton, also a Japanese style knife, a Rikon Swiss knife, which is, I'm not sure what this is. It might be some type of cheese knife. Just an interesting, but still more of a Western style knife. I got a pair of scissors. I have a Cuisinart serrated knife and another one that goes with this other Western style knife. So we have some definitely Japanese style knives. In fact, we should kind of put this one over here because this falls into that Japanese category. We have a serrated knife. Then we have our Western knives and a pair of scissors. So in my shop, I'm going to take my Western knives here, and these are going to be done on my 1x30. And I will show you my current setup over here. And this has changed many, many times, and you can try different things that work for you. I used to have 3 1x30s, and I used to just kind of go down the line. But what I have found currently works best for me is to work on one machine. I'm going to be using this one only and this stropping machine over here on the left for these 3 knives. Now, why is that? This one I have set for 17 degrees. So any knife that I want to do at 17 degrees, which is what I usually use for my Western knives, I'm going to sharpen here. This one I have set for 15 degrees, and that's for more Japanese style or lower angle knives that I want to do at 15 degrees. It keeps me from having to change the angles on any of these machines. I know if I'm going to be doing 17 degrees, I'm coming to this middle machine. If I'm going to be doing 15 degrees, I'm going to go to that machine. And all I do is I take the belts that I need. I'm using the same set of belts. I change my belts monthly unless I know for a fact that they're wearing out sooner. And that's how I do it. Try and keep my belt changes down to as minimal as possible. So on this one, we're going to start with this 120 Cubitron. I'm going to sharpen all 3 of these knives at 120 grit. Then I'm going to change my belt to my A30, which is around 600 grit. I'm going to sharpen all these at that. Then I'm going to change to my A16 for a few strokes, which is around 1,000 to 1,200 grit. And then they will be done. And then I will go on to some other knives in that set. But that's how I'm going to make that choice. Now, for the Japanese knives, I'll show you what I'm going to do there in a minute. All right, so here we go. So this is a pretty good belt because it's brand new. I change my belts at least once a month since we're in the very beginning of May here. This set is very fresh, so they are pretty aggressive. You will notice over time that sometimes they take a little bit more. When I get towards the end of the month, you might have to see me taking more strokes than I would when the belts are brand new and very, very fresh. 830. Okay, done. A16. Now, what I have found is by not jumping around the machines, I get a much more accurate angle that matches evenly. It can be difficult to match all of the machines to exactly the same thing, but if you are not jumping machines, you know you almost always have exactly the same precise angle. And that's why I stopped doing the 3 different machines. A16. Okay, this is done. So 4 minutes so far on this part of the video, and we got 3 knives done. Other than stropping them, which doesn't take long at all. There's a lot of oxidation on this paring knife. Now, I, as part of my service, do clean and polish up knives a little bit. It's not something you have to do, but that's how I do my business. This knife, I've noticed, this paring knife could really use a little bit. So I am just going to quickly touch it on here. I'll show you the oxidation if you guys can see that. See, it's kind of brown and not real nice looking in there. So I'm just going to clean it up quickly. Normally I would do this first, and I do recommend that you polish first, but you know, sometimes I forget or I get into a video and I'm just, you know, doing things in a different order. But I do recommend, until you're very experienced using jewelry buffers and polishers, you might want to do this first, just so you don't accidentally dull a knife. I've been doing this for a long time, so I can I can polish them and touch them up without hitting the blade. I don't really worry about it. But I do still usually attempt to try and make sure that I do this first. But, it's no big deal if I didn't do it first. All right. So these three are done. Except for quick cleaning, cut testing, and putting knife sleeves on them. So I usually use an old towel. I've shown this many times. For some reason, I'm always on the floor. I don't know why. It's just how I just find it easier for me. But I do my cleanup. Need a rag. You'll see a lot of the stuff that I just buffed there came off. All right. Cut test. Now, I have many times shown cut tests. I have videos that are just dedicated to cut test. Super important. I truly believe it's one of the reasons I have such fantastic reviews. I always test every knife cut-wise. You'll know immediately if you didn't get the burr off or if you did something wrong by doing a cut test. It takes 2 seconds. It's so worth doing for every one of your knives. So those 3 knives are done, other than putting sleeves on them. Let's move on to the next batch of knives and the next part of this sharpening job. Okay, so now we have the Japanese knives with some wood handles. I want these to look a little bit better, so I'm just going to quickly do a cleanup here. Quick cleanup. These are my jewelry buffers. I have 2. I've, over the years had many different iterations of this. When I originally started, I was doing them all with hand tools and Dremels, but I found the very best is the jewelry buffers. They work fantastic. These are 4-inch radial discs. You can get them in 3-inch and 4-inch. You do need special mandrels for them. I do get people occasionally contact me that buy the wrong ones. They might buy ones that are designed to go on tools. There are lots of options here, but you want to make sure that you get the proper ones. I'll give you an idea. So the mandrels for the jewelry buffers are these little plastic things. I probably should have showed this long ago, but why not show it in this video? So let me show you real quick here so you can see the difference. They have a different hole in them. Okay, so I can stack. These come in a pack, and I can stack as many as I can fit on a mandrel on here and then screw it together. And then it attaches to the jewelry buffer by screwing onto it. All right, that's how these work. Now, different jewelry buffs have different things. So let me show you one of these smaller ones. So this has hard plastic, and it's just held on with a different style mandrel. This is just a screw going in there. These aren't individual ones. It happens to be a 6-ply one, but this was made more for a Dremel tool. But you do want to be aware of that, because I have seen people accidentally buy not the loose ones like this that they want to put it on a jewelry buffer. I have videos on this too and show them where to get these. Make sure you buy the right ones, okay? Because these are not inexpensive either, but they are the most amazing thing when it comes to polishing and making things just look great. So I'm just going to touch these up quickly. I'm going to touch this area down here. I'm not going to do a whole lot here, but I do have a little rust I want to remove here. And then I'm going to buff the wood on these on a regular buff here on the end with polishes that are made for wood. But just a quick cleanup here. And this time I am doing it in the right order. I am doing the buffing polishing first. Now there's a grain pattern here. Here we have a primary bevel and it's been ground going this way. The rest of this knife, the grain pattern is going the opposite way. So be careful not to cross into that other pattern. You can see here I actually crossed it a little bit. It's no big deal. If you do, you can straighten it out by coming down here and just going right into that. But try and follow the pattern of the particular knife if it has one. If you go against it, the only real negative there is you can start to mirror polish a knife. And that may not be your goal. So if I wanted to start a mirror polish on something, I would do this in one direction and then the opposite. When I'm just looking to polish something up and take oxidation off, I'm not going to go in those both directions. And it can be difficult sometimes getting into these spots down here, even with these, because you can see this pattern's going this way. You know, and there's other things you can do. You can hit it with a fine grit sandpaper. Will work too for getting down in there in those spots that you can't get. It's another way to straighten out. Also, if you want a little bit too high, like I hit a little area up here, just a fine grit sandpaper will restore that. Yeah, and that's doing a really great job of just getting those lines back in the proper way that they're supposed to go. Yeah, so you don't even if you don't have a jewelry buffer, a fine grit sandpaper will polish up a knife quite well and make something look better. You know, you can do it all with sandpaper, really, if you want. Wet sandpaper works well, so you'll see that a lot. But that's all you have to do. So this here is 400 grit. And that one's done. This one too has a bunch of little rust spots down here. Not uncommon on Japanese knives. Sometimes, depending on the carbon content, if someone leaves a little something acidic on there, they will rust. And you might even see that sometimes in stainless steel. Sometimes stuff gets into the stainless. It's not, you know, some perfect quality. And I've seen stainless steel knives that shouldn't be rusting, rust. It happens. Most of your Japanese knife owners know that they are high carbon and usually have to be careful. And there are plenty of Japanese knives that are pure stainless too, that, you know, are not high carbon, that will not rust. It's not every Japanese knife that you have to worry about that. It's just some. And this is something that I do that I know a lot of sharpeners don't. Especially if we're talking like farmers market sharpeners and stuff. They probably don't have time to be bothered polishing someone's knife, making it, you know, look nice. Like I've said and shown many times. And if you went on my website, you'll see the return time for most of my customers' knives is 3 to 5 days. So they know I'm going to have it a little while. But that's also why I take the time to make that knife look really good. And what I'm doing here, like I said, I'm just being conscious of that grain pattern on this particular Japanese knife. And you can see it's not uncommon. People get food and stuff down in there. I'm just going to flip this around. This is 400 grit, if you're wondering. Some people are probably wondering, hey, what grit is that you're using there? But a lot of knives you'll find, like the metal, this one's pretty fine, I can tell from looking at it, but a lot of them, especially the Western knives, a lot of times that 220 is all you need. All right, so now I'm going to do the wood. And there's lots of ways to treat wood. You could, you can go with hardening oils. Sometimes I do that if they look dry. A lot of times I like to just do a quick cleanup with a regular buff. This is a medium buff, and this is a plastic and wood polish. But see how that dingy and that looks? I'll show you how well this wood looks when I'm done. Now this knife has a little burn mark on it. That was already there. That's not for me. You can see it's got on both sides. On wood, I do like to go both directions. It does help it shine it up, and you can use almost any polishing compound. Like there are ones that these two are specifically for wood and plastic, but I've used the regular white buffing compound that you see a lot. It works fine. These just have a little more, oils in them. And a lot of times I guess it's kind of waxes and oils and things mixed in. It kind of helps get into the wood. What happens is the heat melts it and it kind of helps it penetrate the wood a little bit. That's all. So the drier it is, the less oils that are going to be in there, and it's not going to penetrate as well. But that's all. Just a quick touch up. Nothing crazy to make them look better. And, I have lots of options here too. There are, like I said, there's times I decide I'm going to hit them with linseed oil or tongue oil, orange oil are also options I've used many times. Sometimes I look at it too, depending on like how long is it going to be in the shop. Sometimes I'll base it on that. If I know, I'll get customers that are like, hey, I'm going away on vacation. I'm not going to be back for a week, 2 weeks. If that's the case, sometimes I will take that knife and do a nice hardening oil on it and maybe even a couple coats. And then when they get their knives back, they're like, wow, and it's no big deal for me, especially if they're not in a rush. It just does make a difference. You can touch up the metal too. That's an option as well. It will make that knife look good, and it'll even things out, put a little bit of a polish on that metal. I have no problem going from the polishing compound from wood and also touching the metal a little bit. They're pretty much all the same, and I end up cleaning it off in the end. So it's not a big deal. You will see tons and tons of compounds. I actually prefer the ones that are a little more on the dry side because they're easier to clean off. Ones that are very dry make a lot of dust. And I kind of like ones that are in between. I like white. I like this pink. I like purple for stropping. The one I really don't like much at all is green. The aluminum oxide compound bars that are green, I find to be they get very gummy. They attract a lot of dirt, and I find them to be a pain to clean off of things. You know, so like if you polish that knife with green aluminum oxide, some people love it. If I was mirror polishing, I would use it. But as I have said probably 1,000 times, I am not a fan of mirror polishing knives. Just not. They end up being so sensitive to stuff. I think I'm going to hit this one a little bit more here. Yeah. So these look nice and shiny, and they're going to look a lot better after I clean it, but I'm not going to do that till the very end. All right. So onto the Tormek machines. These two are close in size, so I'll probably do those first. Let's start with the Nikiri. There's the shop dog back there sleeping. Okay, there you go. You got a nice shot of all three wheels. Tormek knife angle setter. Greatest thing I think I ever purchased for my Tormek. Speeded up everything very much for me. I think everybody that does knife sharpening should own this tool. You don't want to use the old one that came with the Tormeks if you're really into knife sharpening. That old one, good for chisels and things with very big bevels, was never great for knives. When I didn't have this, I used the Sharpie method more than anything else. But now I don't even need that very often, thanks to this new sharpener or angle setter from Tormek. It's just amazing. Good. All I do, go right down the line. 600 grit CBN wheel, next. Good. 1,000 grit CBN wheel. My oldest and very first CBN wheel I ever purchased. I am thinking of replacing this one soon, because after all this time, it's finally starting to show a little bit of wear. But I got a lot of knives sharpened with this knife. There are a lot of knives sharpened with this wheel. Now I can tell from feel, this feels great. I'm not even concerned about it at all. I'm going to take it out of my jig here and move on to my next knife, and I will do my stropping at the very end of all three together. Now, if you're brand new to Tormek sharpening, you might want to not pull it out of the jig right away. But for me, I'm not concerned. I know it's done properly. I know I have the results there that I'm looking for. But keep in mind, like I said, I got a lot of years and thousands of knives done on Tormek machines under my belt to know that I'm good and I can move on. That's something that comes with experience and time. All right. In the beginning, I used to do a lot of testing and a lot of stuff to make sure that that knife was perfect. Okay. Again, resetting the Tormek angle setter because we have a different knife here. I go from the biggest and work my way down to the smallest so that I'm not having to make tons of adjustments or back up and down. Well, you can see this one is still significantly different in size. So we're back down to 15. I'm doing all of these Japanese knives at 15. A little more of a curve on this one, so you'll see me pulling out towards the camera. Very small motion, but that's what keeps that bevel nice and even. Now, you'll see me do 7 strokes generally. And that's, again, just from experience. I know with the amount of pressure and how I sharpen, that's usually right for me and to get knives to come out right. But depending on you might be different. You might use more pressure than me. So you might be different. You may not be 7 strokes. You might be 10 strokes. You might be 4 strokes. Everyone's a little different. And I'm feeling to see, does it feel good? Does it have a good grab? I like to take a look. Sometimes look if I'm seeing any chips, anything that's concerning me. These were not in terrible shape when they came in. If your bevels are not even, your stroke's probably wrong. You're not coming out like I talked about, how I'm lifting out to keep that tip on the knife. If you're seeing really wide bevels, check your stroke. Make sure you're going out and not lifting up so much. Good. Again, I'm coming out. But if you're brand new to Tormek sharpening, you might not want to pull out of your jig. You can go do your stropping and checking and making sure that you're happy with everything before you pull it out. That would be my recommendation if you're just starting out. Tormek machines take some getting used to. They take some practicing. You are not necessarily going to be fantastic at it in the very beginning. It takes getting used to. It takes proper technique. It takes building some muscle memory. Even though it is guided, there is still more to it than just going down the bar. And again, we're checking our protrusion. And we'll probably have to adjust again for this third knife, which is even thinner. Yep. So coming down even more. 15 degrees, good. Now the reason I don't have to check on every machine here is because I'm using CBN wheels and they're all 250 centimeters or I think it's millimeters. Yeah, millimeters in diameter or 10 inches round. They're exactly 10 inches each one. So that's why I can do one. And by just moving my angle guide to the next machine, because all the machines are exactly the same, I get exactly the same results on each machine. Now, it doesn't mean you have to go out and buy 3 Tormek machines. In my early videos, you'll see I worked with one and I had buckets like over there, that bucket seat that you can't see because I just realized like I'm pointing to something you can't see, but I'll show it later. I would put the wheel on the bucket seat and I would just change the wheel. And I could change a wheel in under, probably under 20 seconds. Okay, machine number 3. Now, you don't have to use CBN and grind dry like I do. I own the Tormek diamond wheels. I could be using those and doing the same process. If you like the diamond wheels and you want to grind in water, keep the dust down because some people don't like the dust. It's totally an option. There's many, many options when it comes to Tormek wheels. And even if you start with the original wheel, which can be graded to 2 different grades with a grading stone, that's an option too. Now, I will tell you, compared to diamond wheels and definitely CBN, much slower process. It is much, much, much slower. These are far more aggressive and sharpen much quicker. And that's not a bad idea either, to learn on the original. I think it's SJ or I forget the number of it. I think it's SJ250 or something like that. Whatever the original wheel is. It's not a bad idea to learn on that. It is a lot slower, but it will help you get your proper technique and stroke down and everything else. So I'm not opposed to that wheel. You know, the problem you will probably run into eventually, I still have my original wheel, is that it might just be too slow for you over time. I can see the burr coming right off on here. A little hanging on here at the tip. Now with Japanese knives, sometimes I will use a 2-strop method. I might do this one here, which I have the purple bar from Maverick on here. I love this one. It does leave a beautiful kind of beginning of a mirror finish on a knife, but it has enough, a little bit of grab to it. It's a little oily, but not, like I said, how I don't like that green abrasives, the aluminum oxide abrasives. I find the purple is a really nice combination between the green and white. White's a little dry. It throws a little more stuff around. And green's a little too oily. But that purple is really, really nice. And then here, this is a round leather strop that I will spray with a 1 micron diamond spray. And I use this a lot for my Japanese knives. I'll sometimes just do one final quick stroke on here at that 1 micron level. And when I'm done this, it should feel like a razor. Okay. And there's all that stuff coming off that I told you would come off in the end from doing a little bit of polishing. It's a little bit of the compound. Be careful cleaning and polishing. Wiping off and cleaning knives is the only time I ever get cut. I rarely get cut. Maybe it's been probably, I feel like it's been well over a year, but it always seemed to be like maybe once a year I got cut. But whenever I've been cut, it's something stupid. It's never been sharpening. Yeah, look at that push cut. Beautiful push, beautiful slice. Same thing, beautiful push. Let's do a slice. Yeah, and you'll find very quickly, you'll know after you do thousands of cut tests. You know, I've had people say to me, Paul, why don't you pull your best tester out to test those and everything? When you do thousands of knives, I remember one year I literally counted. I'd sharpened over 3,000 knives that year. You get to the point where you literally, you don't need something like a best tester. The paper cut test tells me everything I need to know about that knife. So nice and polished, looking good, super sharp. I'm going to do all of these now on their sleeves. I still have a few more to do, things to do for this set before we're done. I have one small paring knife here. Need a pair of scissors. this one's going to need like a medium. Yeah, that'll fit. Now, sometimes I give them the whole sleeve, but other times I might save a piece because I will use the smaller pieces for stuff sometimes. Helps me save a little bit of money on packaging materials and knife sleeves. All right, we're getting to where we're almost done. We got a couple more things here to do to finish this off. All right, we have a pair of scissors. We have our Japanese style knife, but this is just a Japanese style knife that is really from a Western company. And this is sometimes one of that I'm going to show you. I can do it on a 1x30. So here's my other 1x30 that's set to 15 degrees. And I can do this knife on here no problem. And that's why I say you don't have to have Tormek machines. You can do everything on one machine. What I had noticed was this really had a lot of chips in it and some stuff. I think this is a faux Damascus that's on here. I don't believe it's real. So I'm going to do this on this 1x30. But I want to get all these chips out. It's also missing a bit of a tip on the one side. Looking much better. Still a little chip in the middle. You should look at both sides when you're looking for chips, because sometimes the burr going over the knife will hide it. And you think you got it, and then you look at the other side and you're like, oh wait, there's still a chip there. Yeah, I got one still here. Good enough. Now, normally when I work on my 1x30s, I wear a mask. I'm not wearing one today, so you can hear me. But I do recommend that you wear a mask. Generally, it's a good idea. Or I use my downdraft table, but if I did that, you wouldn't be able to hear me. Good. You will see a lot of Japanese style knives that are actually made with German steel. That is not uncommon either. When you hit a real true Japanese knife that's got Japanese steel, and some of them can be quite hard. I remember the very first time I tried to sharpen a set of globals on the original Tormek wheel that I was talking about earlier that can be dressed to 250 or I forget if it's 250 and 1,000 or 200 and 1,000. But my God, I didn't think it was ever going to get done. And that was why I originally went to CBN wheels. Another thing you can tell from looking at knives and their wear and everything else, I can tell this is somebody's favorite knife. because it had more wear than any of the other knives. So whenever I see that knife too, I always try and make sure, if I know like, hey, that's somebody's favorite knife because it's been used a lot, I try and make it look really good. I try and get them back that favorite knife in really good condition. And that tends to make people happy too. So don't be afraid to use, I guess, a little psychology there, and look for that knife. Look, if you see that someone like, hey, this must be someone's favorite knife, it's okay. Spend a little more time on it. If you see it's really worn and it's just going to get you a bigger fan of your sharpening and probably a repeat customer. If that person brings in a whole set of knives and some they barely ever use, another one is their absolute favorite knife in the world. This one's got a bunch of little weird marks on it, and I think I can buff the majority of them out. A lot of them are coming out. Yeah. So I'm going to be able to make this knife look a lot better. I don't know if they're just marks from being in a knife drawer. Or if it's delaminating some. Could be a little delamination going on. I don't think it's G10. It's definitely not wood. Okay. Gotta check that grinder. It doesn't normally make that noise shaking the table like that. Okay, quick cut test. Cutting beautiful. Serrated knife and a pair of scissors. Let's do the serrated. I do serrateds that don't need refurbishing on my strop. It's a little bit of rust here. I'm just going to give it a quick polishing to make it look good. That looks good. All right, handle cleanup and a little bit of polishing of the metal. With handles, keep moving. It's not a huge fear on jewelry buffers of burning or melting handles, but if you're on a full-size buffer, and depending on what you're using, you can melt a handle. You have to be careful. You'll get a feel for it. Once you start doing this, you'll be like, wow, look how good that looks. Like, it's a big difference. It's one of the reasons I do it. And also, like I've said many times, I think it's one of the reasons I get great reviews. People get that old, what is this? A Califon? No, Cuisinart. People get that old Cuisinart knife back, and it all of a sudden, looks like it's relatively new. And it's a 20, 30-year-old knife that they've had in their kitchen. But they like it for whatever reason. In this case, probably might be their only serrated knife they have. But they kept it for whatever reason. Okay, that looks great. Sometimes I'll spend a little more time on the rivets if they're heavily oxidized. This person's been taking good care of their knives. Rivets are a dead giveaway of how someone's taking care of their knives. If they look all terrible, rusted, pitted, falling apart, they're putting their knives in the dishwasher. Terrible. Worst thing you can do for your knives. Put them in the dishwasher. All right. Not going to get crazy in the detail on here. I have whole videos dedicated to sharpening a serrated knife. I do it two different ways. I have my split belt method, and there's plenty of videos showing where to get the split belt. You can get it from RE Sharpening on Etsy. He's a follower of the channel. He made the first one. Well, a couple people have made them for me. So some guys have made their own. We made our first ones out of wood, but then he made a 3D printed one, which is really cool now that I have a 3D printer. But the one he makes, it's really nice. And that's what I use when I need new belts for sharpening serrated knives. I'll bring you in here real close, but like I said, this is going to be quick. If you really want to see a detailed video of this, go check out my other videos. This one has great serrations. This doesn't need refurbishing. It just needs a quick touch-up. Almost a zero angle. I come up here and we go right down the flat side. This is going away from me. I'm pulling that tooth up. Sometimes you'll see the burr push to the inside of that scallop, and you'll see a little reflection area going away. I'm not seeing anything on this one because this knife was not in terrible shape. And I will work my way right down here. Now, when you get to the front, you're going the other way. And you want to feel that burr on that back side. Okay, so now I raised the burr all on the inside. It's a little tiny reflection I can see right there. This is where I grab a Dremel with a wire wheel. There we go. My big eraser for cleaning. So now what I'm doing, I'm just pushing that burr back to the other side, which is going to weaken it. Pretty simple. Now you can do a bunch of different things for removing it. Leather works fine. Another one that's very popular, works very well, is a felt belt. I'll show you a felt belt. This is a white one. I think Cliff's now selling yellow ones. I have a yellow one too. I haven't had to use it yet. You can put diamond spray on these. I make my own diamond sprays. I have a video that shows how to make diamond sprays. If you're going to make your own diamond spray, I do recommend using isopropyl alcohol to mix it. And that's the one thing you can use on these felt belts. You can just kind of spray it right on there and it gets in there. You might want to give it a few minutes to dry. I'm just showing you that. This one has actually been treated not that long ago. But you'll see it's going to throw a little bit of that stuff. But this is great for getting in there and kind of getting that burr down. Now, if you want to get into the scallop side, you can come to the side of the belt and you'll see that burr. And we're just going to keep working it till we get that burr off. It might take a couple times of going back and forth. Remember your front, the tip was different. We pushed our burr to this side. That very front, we should be sharpening a different, we should be deburring the opposite. And you'll usually feel, it'll feel much sharper. It'll feel better. You should feel the difference. And the other thing you should see is it should cut really well. This method works very, very well. And it will give you a wicked sharp serrated knife without grinding the teeth down. Yeah, feels very good. Cutting very good. And it looks nice and polished. And that's done. All right, I think this might be the first time I've ever shown a complete set of everything all the way through. All right, last thing. We are going to grab that pair of scissors. All right, these scissors are very dirty. I just noticed that. So the first thing I'm gonna do is clean them up. A lot of times it's gunk and tape and just junk. So the first thing I always look for is tape and junk. And I see a lot of stuff that looks like it could be tape and junk. And when I see that, I usually grab Goof Off. I have two different ones. I have one that's a gel, which is really good for really gunked up gluey stuff. And then I have more of a general purpose one, but it works well too. They both work really well. I have both. You know, both aren't necessary. Sometimes the household, if there's a lot of old tape and stuff on there, struggles with getting some of it off. But you can see, like, these are already cleaning up. A lot of what was on here was just garbage from opening packages. And yeah, these look 1,000% better. I thought they were going to need a little radial disc polishing, but they were really just dirty. I'm going to grab this little 250 or 220. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, I mean, I'm not even going to touch it. They look good. So we're just going to sharpen. Had this wheel custom made for me, and then they decided to carry it in stock because it was so popular, and a lot of the guys that follow me went and bought this same exact wheel. So I'm going to set this. Generally, these run around 20 degrees for kitchen shears, so that's where I'm going to start to check. I don't want to say they're always that, but in general, it seems to be the case. I'm not going to take these apart because these don't come apart. Some of them do. When I can get scissors apart, I do like to take them apart for sharpening. And that looks pretty good. So we're going to go with that angle. With scissors, you just want to go to your razor burr. Sometimes you might have to go a little deeper if you got some chips and stuff to get out. Saw a small chip down here. Yeah, that's good. So these get honed on the other side. These hones on these tend to make a lot of heat. Some people don't even like to use it. It doesn't bother me. I just go quick. I do have to watch my machine sometimes. This is a perfect example of it. When you don't have them separated, it can be tough to hit the whole blade on there. My blade is actually hitting the outside of the cover. That's why I have no cover on this side. But you can see I don't hang out on that hone. It's quick. Now I'm going to do the other side, but it looks good. If you spend too much time on there, you can burn it or blue the blade or blue a tip. We don't want to do that. It's usually 3 or 4 strokes unless they're really banged up. With kitchen shears, sometimes you just want to keep an eye out too and make sure they're not corrugated on one side. Sometimes kitchen shears are what we call corrugated, which almost looks like serrations on the one side. And the reason for that is basically to keep food from slipping off when you're cutting it with the scissors. Done. With scissors, I always like to push them apart before I do the first cut. Pull back to pull any burr up. I usually do that 2 times. And then I cut like normal. I like to lubricate them with Wolf Industries scissor wax. It's food safe. It's just an alcohol-based wax. Then I wipe any excess there off. And then I generally just give them a cut test to make sure they're cutting well. And sometimes on scissors, I'll go for something even a little more dense than my Uline catalog that I use for knife sharpening. This is that extra piece of the knife sleeve. This will sometimes be the thing that helps take that burr off, and they're cutting great. And they're done. So we're done that whole set of knives. So my customers bring their stuff in towels. I have a video on my site that shows them, hey, here's the best way to transport your knives. And this is how I return them to them. So sometimes they bring in multiple towels if they got a bunch of stuff. I take their same stuff, I lay their knives out and make this like a knife roll. Even though I give them sleeves, everybody gets knife sleeves. I just roll it right back up in what it came in. Make sure you know your count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 things between the knives. And we have 1 pair of scissors. So I'm going to roll these up. Scissors I usually put on top. They had 1 more towel. They brought stuff in 2 towels. Line that like that. And then here's how I finish everything. And I grab my stretchy wrap. Every one of my clients gets a sensitive wrap. Every one of my clients gets a business card bottle opener, stainless steel. These stretchy wrap that adheres to itself. I bought a case of it probably 7 years ago, and I'm still working on the same case. This stuff goes a long ways. Little gift in my business card. I slap it on top, just like so. That's their little thank you gift. Just started doing that this year. I used to give business cards, but I find everybody likes the bottle opener. And if I buy them in bulk, I get them fairly cheap, about 35, 40 cents. And that's what they get back. Then I take their name, I write the amount on here, and I put a rubber band on it. It stays that way till they come and pick it up. And that is it. The next thing I do the math to figure out what they owe me, and I send them a text message to let them know their knives are ready. This was 9 items, 1 serrated knife. So we have 9 times 13. That's $117. And it's good to go.